Welcome everybody to Teaching Tuesdays, which we used to have every other week several years ago, and we started it up again, I guess, in the last month, and everyone seems to really enjoy it. So, for those of you that are new, um, Passive Cash Flow for Life is a course that was developed by Nicheole Amundsen, who is speaking today. She's been doing real estate for 30 years, commercial real estate for the vast majority of that, thousands of doors across the country, and had great success. And she taught the course Passive Cash Flow for Life for about a dozen years. I took it about 10 years ago or so. It was phenomenal. It's now actually online, which is a much easier. You can get it in pieces as opposed to all in 4 days, but it's an amazing, amazing, amazing course. Teaches you everything from the very beginning to actually having a successful business and leaving a legacy. So everything in between. So it's an amazing course. And the goal here behind Teaching Tuesdays is just kind of to share information about different things in multifamily or even mobile home parks and sometimes single family as well to kind of just share the wealth. And obviously, what we hope is if you find value in it and you decide to get into multifamily, that you'll participate in the course and be part of the community. So, having said that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Nicheole.
Hey, thanks, James.
Mhm.
Okay, so just a couple of background kind of things here. So when I started to do this, how to buy a property in 6 months, um, it was trying kind of need to get stuff out of the way. There we go. Um, the idea was to try and do one presentation, and it quickly became clear that even with a 30,000 foot overview, can't really talk about that in 1 hour. So, what we're going to do is we're going to do this one. We're going to talk about the first 3 months, basically, what you need to do. And then in the next one, which will probably be the last one in August, we're going to talk about the last 3 months. So you're going to have a month or so to get some of this done if you so choose, if you decide to work on this. So the idea behind this is that there are some action steps that you can take if you're committed to trying to buy a property in 6 months. And so this is going to be kind of a highlight of some of the to-dos. Um, there aren't that many. How many people are on the call, James? Just out of curiosity, I can't tell.
I think 11 or 12, something like that.
Okay.
So,
So there's a small enough group that if you have questions, please raise your hand or put a question in the chat box, or even turn your mute off and ask the question, because that's going to be there's a small enough group that I think we can get away with that this time. So, what I am focusing on here are those who want to buy their first multifamily property, their first rental. And for me, the definition of multifamily, as everybody knows, is 5 units or more. But in the context of this, duplex, triplex, fourplex, any size where you have, kind of more than one property, more than one unit works. If you are just getting started, I would suggest you start smaller so you can kind of get some of this learning under your belt. If you are serious about wanting to close a first property in 6 months, you have to actually, there's a lot of legwork in the first 3 months. So a lot of the legwork is going to be done in the first 3 months. And then the 3 months to close, the last 3 months, a lot of it is your due diligence and rounding up money and getting a lot of that stuff done. So the first 3 months is really a lot of preparation, talking to a lot of people, getting things in place. And the idea is that by the end of 3 months, you have um, a couple of properties that look like they may work. And then the last 3 months is actually going to be, or in months 4 through 6, is going to be actually doing the work to get it closed. Um, because multifamily and actually buying any property is a combination of finding the property, doing some basic analysis, learning about that market, and starting to raise money so that you can close on it if you don't have enough to buy it yourself. You're working in more than one area at the same time. So I think one of the things that people really need to do is to make a list of everything that needs to get done and then to break it out. What are you going to do every week? So that you kind of eat the elephant one bite at a time, so to speak. And we're going to go over this a little bit about what some of those steps are, at least at a little higher level. And then if you have questions and things, we'll be happy to answer a little bit of questions. What we can't do is basically mentor you one-on-one and answer messages, every hour, every day. So a lot of this is you're going to be kind of working on your own. Next month or another month, we're going to talk about the second part, and I just told you that. We just talked about that. So, um, the realistic. Now you can buy a single family house for sure in less than 6 months, but the reality is because of all the steps involved, you probably aren't going to be able to close on a multifamily property in less than 6 months. So it's going to take 6 months or longer. Um, you need to find your markets. Then you're going to look at a lot of properties. And part of after once the find the markets is you're going to be finding a lot of brokers to talk to, doing some basic analysis. Then you're going to end up going back and forth with the seller and the broker on what you can offer. And at the same time, you're trying to start raising money for this deal. That last box there, which is the due diligence and closing, once you have a letter of intent or you have an agreement, it typically takes about 90 days to close on a property. So that's why we're really thinking that the first 3 months, it's a lot of the prep, it's trying to find the property, etc. All right. We already said you're going to be working on several areas at the same time. One of the things you really need to consider is while I'm spending hour and a half today and an hour and a half on next month, the reality is you really cannot learn this craft in multifamily in 2 to 3 hours. There's just too much to know. Multifamily is not like single family. In a lot of single family, there are lots of consumer protections for people who are buying houses. That does not exist in the multifamily or commercial world. It's a case of buyer beware. They can't lie to you. Brokers can't commit fraud, just like anything else, but they do not have to disclose. So a lot of what we do in multifamily and commercial is you really have to learn the business. And towards the end of this, I'm going to get James to talk just a little bit about the online course we have and And if you're serious about learning the craft, you ought to think about that. But we're also not trying to sell that today. We're trying to give you the basics of what it needs. One of the things that you first need to do, even before you start all this other stuff, is you need to set your goals and objectives of what you want. Um, and that is so some people want to have a large portfolio of a lot of properties. Some people want to have a few properties so they can have a little extra for their family. Some people want to have a few houses paid off by the time they retire, so they don't have to worry so much about retirement. Some people want enough houses so that their family or enough properties that their family is going to be good. Some people want enough so that you can quit your job and just go play. Any of those and all of those are fine. But you need to think to begin with, what is it that you're really trying to do and be realistic?
Excuse me, Nicole.
Yeah.
Couple of
Who's
bullets ago.
who's this? I'm trying, don't recognize all voices. Is this Lewis?
Yes, ma'am. A
Okay.
couple of bullets ago, you mentioned the idea that the brokers cannot lie to you, and I do hand quotes with that. Um, what is the legal burden of responsibility for them to make sure that all of the information that they put up in the listing or that they convey verbally or whatever, how much of a legal burden do they have as far as making sure that everything is true and correct?
They probably have some responsibility in the due diligence and in the on their side. But if they got information from a seller, then sellers can lie too, and it's not the broker's job to dive into every single deal to make sure that everything they're telling you, the seller's telling them is true. But you can come after the seller if they are presenting information that's not correct. What brokers don't have to do is answer questions or provide kinds of information if they may not have it, or so saying nothing is not the same thing as lying, if you kind of get my drift. So it really is a buyer beware in a lot of ways in this.
Thank you.
Coming back to setting up your goals and objectives, um, all you need to do is start out with is to figure out what you think you want to do in the next 1 to 2 years. If you don't already have a portfolio,
This is why your mom doesn't love you! I can't, bro.
is that, I don't know, who is that, Nicholas? What was that about? Was that somebody that just got on, James?
Yeah, I may have to kick them out. No worries. I can
Okay.
take care of it.
Um, so it is, I just kind of lost train of thought there. Sorry, you guys. Um, Starting out small, if I was advising people, I'd say if you haven't bought anything before, your initial goal should be 10 units or less, 15 units or less, because you really need to get the process under your belt and then you can expand. At the same time, once you've done that, you need to find kind of markets where it looks like there's reasonable prices, reasonable costs, and where you may want to invest. So you're going to find your markets. At the same time, you need to start talking to people about um, the money you're going to need to close. You're going to start talking about doing some basic analysis But we're really just talking about basic analysis in the 3 months. So 5 and 6, and number 6 is you're going to find property managers to manage your properties. Some people want to self-manage, and that's probably reasonable for the first, few, 1 or 2 houses, 1 or 2 buildings. But if one of your goals is to have more than 1 or 2 properties, you need to really rethink that, because that's what takes a lot of investors out is trying to manage residents at the same time you're trying to buy more. All right, so let's kind of start breaking this down just a little bit. So all those 6 things, I'm going to try and hit some of the highlights of what's in there. Learn what you need to do and learn to know what you know and what you don't know. And we already said one way's the class. We talked about there's commercials different. You need some base documents. You're going to need some base documents before you start talking to a lot of people. And we'll talk about that when we talk about trying to start raising money a little bit. You also need to consider when you're starting out whether you should be finding a partner, somebody to work with. And I am not talking about a business partner per se, where you own a business together. I'm talking about somebody to work with, because there's a lot of people that you, more often than not, business partners don't work out. And so until you know that you can work with somebody and you have good rapport and everybody's going to carry their own load, it makes sense to maybe try and do a deal with them, but do not move into a partnership until you're sure that's going to work. I can't tell you the number of times I've seen that go kaflooey, but it is a team sport, without a doubt. Commercial real estate is a team sport. There's just a lot of moving parts, and one person really is going to have a hard time handling it all. When I started, I was doing this by myself, and I just couldn't buy a lot the first few times. I was also still working. Um, and it wasn't until I started getting other people to help with different things that things began to move a little bit. So I would consider that one of the things that I didn't do very right to begin with. All right, the next one is your goals and objectives. This is really important. You need to figure out what you want to do in the next 3 to 5 years and write it down. Even if it is just on a piece of paper, write it on the mirror in your bathroom, do something where you're going to look at it. This is basically because a lot of this is not fun work that you have to do. It's kind of, I won't say drudge, but it's a lot of things that are not fun, like trying to find and analyze deals to get this set up. And you have to do something different to be able to be successful at this, because this does take time. And so one of the things you have to really put in your mind is get real clear on why you are doing this. Why is this important? Why is this something that you are going to be willing to change what you do? And so I actually came across a quote that I kind of liked this morning. And it's the 3 C's. Let me just see if I can pull that up real quick, because I want to make sure that I get it right. So There are three C's of life: choices, chances, and changes. So you must make a choice to take a chance, or your life will never change. And so if you really want to be having a different life, you have to do something different. There just isn't any way around it. And I think the thing that takes people out more often than not, and I'm going to get James to kind of jump in here too on this here in just a second, tell you what he thinks, is that it is you when you are wanting to do something, when people are starting out on this, they're all gung ho and they're going to put in the hours, and then life gets in the way. And you want to do this or you want to do that. And people fall away from their goals, they don't stick to them. And I think that's the number one reason a lot of people are not successful is that they just don't keep at it. Um, it's really kind of sad to me, the number of people who really want to change their life, but something happens and they just don't make it. Most of this business is mental, to be quite honest with you. You have to believe you can do it, you have to work hard, and you have to keep at it. And I'd like you, James, to step in and say what you think about all of this.
Well, I think it's a very valid point. I mean, you've talked about this, I think, at every class we ever taught about that the business is really 80, 85% mindset. And that's probably true of almost anything you do in life. I think there's a saying out there that discipline is just the ability to remember why you started doing something in the first place, whatever your why is. One of the things that I've learned over time from you is that, sometimes you just have to tie into the system and decide that you're going to almost divorce yourself from the results. Okay, 2 hours, I'm going to make X amount of calls, I'm going to talk to so many brokers, I'm going to look at deals, and just keeping going consistently and persistently until something happens. I think we live in a very instant gratification society that if you don't buy your first, 100 doors after the first year, you're not doing well. Well, it's a long-term business. You just have to keep at it. I will say that everyone that I've seen be successful in this business, with that exception, has just kept at it. You just keep hammering away at it, trying to have fun with it, but it's just being consistent and persistent, if that helps.
Yeah, it does. And I couldn't agree more. It's really about, I mean, I think the military has it right when they say the real answer is just don't quit. Don't quit. You can do this. You can be, I think that you can buy your first small multifamily within 6 months if you're willing to put in 10 to 15 hours a week. And so my advice would be to go to your calendar and to block out at least 10 hours a week, to actually block time on your calendar. And you have to treat it like it's a job, like you were, if you were getting up and going to your job, you don't let other things get in the way. It's a priority. This has to be a priority too, if that's what you really want. Um, One of the things you need with the goals is figure out how many units you think you want to start with, and then focus there. So there in real estate and real estate education, there is a whole lot of the shiny new object syndrome, where all of these people out there are telling you you can do this, you can make $10,000 a month and with none of your own money, and it'll only take you 30 days to get the first $10,000, or oh, well, if this didn't work, try this strategy. So the truth is that this shiny new object syndrome, what we tend to do is be like a chicken and we are scratching the dirt. And what you have to do is dig a well. You just you just have to get in and you have to dig that well. You can't keep if you just scratch the surface, I don't think it's going to work. And so I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer here at all. I'm trying to tell you honestly what it takes and that it is real doable, but you have to do the work. All right. So the next thing, number three, is you're going to have to identify your markets. And so let's just talk about that for a minute. Before you start trying to find properties and do analysis, you need to do a little bit of work to find out where you want to buy. Um, Market research is kind of one of the first steps, and then we kind of move on from there. In general, the South and the Midwest have better prices that are more realistic and you're more likely to be able to make a deal work. Um, you are unlikely to find good deals to begin with in some of the major markets like Washington, D.C., New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, California. They're just too expensive. And so the sellers there are selling them at prices that if you need to bring partners in, if you need to raise money and they're going to expect to get a return on their money and you want some return too, you just can't pay those prices and have the deal work. So the first thing is to try and find areas where you might like to invest. If you really want to buy near where you live, that kind of makes sense to begin with, so you can be fairly near to what you're buying. Then I'd say you need to look in the outer suburbs or in small communities that are still within the traffic area of where you live. So 2.5, 3 hours, something like that. All right. Where you see there that where I say tertiary markets. So the primary markets are the really big markets like the Washington, D.C., Baltimore, those kinds of things that have 500,000 or more people kind of thing. Secondary markets are the intermediate markets where you have, kind of 100,000 to 500,000. And tertiary markets are the small markets. Now, when I'm talking tertiary, I'm talking small. I'm talking 50,000 people or less. And before everybody says, but those are really small. Who I need a bigger place, bigger market to be able to find things so that I can buy so that people want to rent. So what I'm here to tell you is that in a lot of the small rural markets, there are not enough rental properties by a long shot. So there are good opportunities in small markets. What you want in a small market is that the population is at least stable. You don't want people leaving. You want to know that there are jobs or that people are commuting to jobs and that what the salary is. One of the places I go looking when I go looking for potential markets is the census.gov website. If you look at census.gov and you put in a rural county or a smaller town, you can come up with a lot of basic information. You can come up what the population is, if it's growing, if it's decreasing, if it's stable. Some of the stuff that I really look at are a couple of things. And if you were going to write things down, this might be some things to write down. Is that in that census.gov, they will tell you in one of the general areas the number of households. All right. In that number of households, in another screen, it will tell you the number of, now you don't want people here, you want households. It will tell you the number of households that own, and therefore the households that don't own are obviously renting or doing something else. So if you have, so I'm going to make this up in a small city. You have 2,000 households. That's going to equate to probably somewhere around a population of 10,000, somewhere around there. So 2,000 households and 1,500 own their own homes, are homeowners. That means that 500 are not. That's 25% of the market. That's pretty typical for a lot of small markets. There are not enough rentals. There just are not. Prices tend to be lower. You will tend to see residential realtors listing commercial properties. They don't necessarily know all the things the big multifamily kind of brokers, realtors know. And so you sometimes find better deals. The other thing you're going to find on census.gov that's important to look at is that you will see that there is the average cost of a house, what the average prices are. Remember, this is out of date at this point because it was a 2020 where the last census was taken. And that was sort of right in the middle of COVID. And so some of the data is a little questionable, so you need to double check it. But it will tell you the number of the average home prices. It'll also tell you the average salaries, household salaries, right? Those are numbers you can use to figure out if people can afford to buy or rent. And that's a big issue today. Affordability is one of the biggest issues facing people in this country, is that they're just, particularly the big cities, people are just, they can't afford to rent. Okay. All right. You need to spend some time. So once you've identified a couple, two or three markets that are potentials, now you need to go start looking, just kind of scanning through some of the websites, the big broker websites, to see what's for sale in those areas and about what they're asking and what they look like. So you're just going to try and get a sense of what's for sale in the area and what they're selling for, to just kind of get a general sense of the market. So this is all part of the market. Would you add anything, James, here?
No, I think that's all very positive. One of the things that you have taught me is a lot of times what you can do is you can go to LoopNet or Crexi and put in the town that you're looking at. And even though some of the deals, if not all of the deals, or most of the deals on LoopNet are not very good deals, what I've done is I'll go into LoopNet and I'll find the brokers, and then I'll look at the brokers and go, oh, look, this person represents Pittsburgh that I'm looking at, if that's a market that you're looking at, and look to have 12 listings. And this other broker in Pittsburgh has one listing. So I'm probably going to call the broker with the 12 listings just because chances are they're going to have more opportunity for me to look at. But I think it's a great tool to use to find brokers.
Yeah, I agree. It's a good place too. That's a good point. It's a good place. LoopNet or Crexi are good places to
Mhm.
find brokers. Not necessarily good places to find deals because that tends to be where deals go to die because nobody else wants them.
Except, except we have to have Nashra on one of these Teaching Tuesdays. Nashra's a student. She's bought 3 deals, all off Crexi, and they're all killer deals. So they're
Oh,
there, but she
great.
had to go through a lot of them.
Yeah, okay, that's a good point. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So it is those deals, but you do get, so one of the challenges of new investors is getting brokers to take you seriously, to answer your calls. And so if you actually are calling about a deal that a broker can't sell, that's up on Crexi or LoopNet, chances are that you will find that they'll return your calls a little bit more. All right, let's talk about acquisition, which is number 4. Um, once, so one of the things I want to tell you here, and I'm going to get out my wet noodles and beat you over the head with this. Um, you are not at this step doing a full analysis. What you're trying to do is to get a sense if what they're asking for this deal is anywhere in the ballpark. What James just said is most deals don't work. They really don't. People are still asking way too much for the property, particularly since interest rates have gone up so much. All right. So we need a way to screen properties quickly. And the best way to do that is to call brokers. And I'm going to skip ahead here for just 1 minute. Yeah, one of the things I need to back up and tell you just a little bit about brokers and the way this works in the commercial world. So in the residential world, you have basically the MLS where everybody posts all the deals. In the commercial world, they don't. You will see a deal posted on the broker's website and um, and then the broker down the street, same town, has different properties that are on their website. And so in any market, you can't just find one broker, commercial broker. You have to be looking at the 2, 3, 4 brokers in the area because they're all going to have different properties and they're not going to share them with each other. So way this tends to work is that a realtor will get a commercial property under contract and they're going to share it out with their investors, the people they know. And if they don't get bites there, they're likely to share it with other realtors in their office. If they don't get bites there, they're going to maybe share it with their friends down at the other brokerage. Doesn't work there, it ends up on Crexi or LoopNet because the normal investors that these brokers have are not buying it, which tends to mean there's something not great about that deal, right? So you need more than one broker in a market, right? Not supposed to, but it still happens a lot, is that a lot of the really good deals end up in a broker's pocket. They're called pocket listings. And you don't see them end up on the websites and things until they've shared them with their clients and maybe their buddies. So you don't see the full property package right away. So tends to be that the properties you see when you go looking at a realtor's websites are things that haven't been shared or that haven't that the brokers A-list people who they normally sell to have passed on it. That means that you are tending to have to look at even more deals. So one of the things we always try and do when we find brokers, so we're going to try and find more than one office in a town, in a market. We're going to try and find a broker that we can work with, and you have to try and get a relationship with them. They have to start seeing you as a person, so you need to try and connect with them. That one of the best ways to do that is to see if you can find something in common with them. And the second thing is if they send you a deal, analyze it in the first 24, 40 hours they send it, give you basic information, get back to them. Always, always get back to them. This is what I'm seeing. It doesn't work because what else do you have? But the key is to always get back, to don't just ignore them. So many people, the brokers will send them something, it doesn't work, and they look at it, take a quick look at it, and just never get back. You have to build relationships with brokers. You just have to in this business. All right. So now we're going to talk now about doing an initial analysis, and it's just initial analysis. You're going to try and get the broker to send you a current rent roll. Doesn't have to be for the year. You want 1 month within the last 2, 3, 4 months. And that rent roll needs to have a list of all of the units. If it's rented, who is renting it, what their rent is, and if there are any aged receivables, so people aren't paying. From that information, you can figure out what the monthly income is. You can figure out occupancy, how many units are filled, how many are vacant, and you should be able to figure out something about bad debt. All right. All of those things are some of the things that you need to begin with. One of the things that you should be able to do is from that rent roll, if all of the units were rented, you should be able to get a sense of what that if all units were filled and everybody was paying, what that monthly income is. And then you multiply that by 12, and that is your potential gross income, right? We are going to assume that we always have a 10% vacancy. That's turnover, that's bad debt, that's all sorts of things. So if a broker tells you that they're all rented and there's a waiting list, all well and good, I still use 10% vacancy factor because there's going to be turnover, there's going to be other things. So
Nicole?
we're going to use 90% of gross. On the other hand, if the rent roll shows you that it's only 70% occupied, then you're going to use 70%, right? Because you know you have an actual 30% vacancy.
Excuse me, Nicole.
Yes,
If I may ask a question.
sure.
You said, okay, so if you get documentation or the broker says that it's 100% occupied, you say you use 90% as a cushion. Would that be the same regardless of how many units?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Thanks.
So now, so it becomes a bit of an issue if you're buying a 4 unit because you're not going to assume that 1 unit is always vacant. But what I am going to do is I am going to take what my potential gross is
Mm-hmm.
for the year and take
90% of that.
10% off of that.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. Expenses are almost always net. This is not including the vacancy, 45 to 50%. Across the country, taxes are going up and insurance has certainly gone up. So what used to be 45% is now 45 to 50% across my enterprise without, and that doesn't include the vacancy factor. Okay. So once you know what the potential income is minus what the expenses are, then you have what's called the net operating income. The value of a property is based off of the net operating income. And it is reported at a sale price, what's called a cap rate, capitalization rate. A capitalization rate just means that if I was buying a property totally for cash, what would be my return on my investment? So if I get a 7 cap rate, that tends to mean that I get a 7% return on my money, right? If I paid all cash for that property. An 8 cap is basically an 8% return. Right? So when we're figuring out what they are asking, I'm going to take my net operating income and I am going to divide it by 7% by 8%. So if my net operating income is $1,000 to make this math easy, right? And I'm going to divide that by 0.07. Somebody want to do the math there? Tell me what you get.
14,285 and change.
All right, so your NOI is 1,000. You divide it by 0.07, right? Let me see if I'm gonna let me clear this. All right. So so you are getting that you can pay. So if the NOI is only $1,000 for a year, you can pay about that's kind of
But that's a monthly income. We're really talking annual, right?
I'm talking, so I'm using it just as as an ease in math. To point out the math here. So if your NOI for the year is $1,000 and you divide that by 0.07, that means that you can offer $14,000 for that property. So now let's take another one. Did everybody kind of follow that? Take and put that 100,000 instead of 1,000, put 100,000 in to your calculator. And what did you get? Anybody trying this?
Yes, Lewis, you got the last one. Did you get this one?
I'm sorry?
I was asking Lewis that he got the last one. that if you got this one as well. So just
Well, 1.4,
$100,000. Go ahead.
1.4.
One
If
point
we're doing
four
7 cat rate, yeah.
Yeah, so
million, right?
you can, if you have $100,000 NOI across a year, and at a 7 cap rate, you could pay about 1.4 million. All right. So now instead of 0.07, put in 0.08. 100,000 divided by 0.08. Somebody else give an answer there?
You guys can just unmute if that's easier.
Somebody turn yourself off mute and tell me what number you got, pretty please. Is anybody listening?
1.25.
Yeah, it's 1.25 million. So as your cap rate goes up, as you were making more money, the as you can, I'm sorry, as you can pay less, the cap rate goes up because it means you're making more money on your money. So what I always look for is that I can get to at least an 8 cap by the end of year one. If I'm calculating numbers and I use a 7, so I'm going to divide my NOI by 0.07. If what they are asking for in the property is 20% more than what I can pay, I'm just going to pass on it. Did everybody understand that? That's all you need to do in your first analysis. It should take you 10 minutes. Don't do more. This is a numbers game right now. All right. Finding investors. What we're going to do is we are going to start with trying to find people that you're going to tell them what you're doing. And the first step is you're just going to make a list of 100 people you know. And you're going to send them an email and tell them about what you're doing and that you are moving into a new realm and that you'd love to tell them more. And that if you get an interesting deal or something interesting, should you share it? Would they like you to share it with them? It's a relationship business. Before you even start trying to look at properties, start by getting your list of people and start talking to people. You also need, in the first 3 months, to create a credibility package. It's basically a 2 or 3 page little document about who you are and what you want to buy and who are members of your team and where are you buying, etc. And if people are interested, call them on the phone, meet them for coffee, but start building those relationships. All right. When you start when you've identified your markets, one of the things you should be doing is trying to find good property management companies, even before you find a deal. Brokers are great sources of who are good property management companies, particularly for the type of property you're trying to buy. I probably wouldn't contact them right away until I have looked at a few properties and think this is a market I like. But you do need to know before you go too far deep that there are property managers in this market that you may want to work with. Reality is that if you that it's important to buy right. but it is probably more important to manage right because you're tending to hold these for a long time. And so, good property management, good management is key, probably the key to a successful investing career. All right. So, next time we're going to try and look at a couple of examples. We're going to talk a little more about your credibility, investors. But if you're serious, what you can do over the next month to 6 weeks is identify 3 potential markets, look at 2 to 4 properties in each market, and ask for a rent roll. So now you are talking to brokers. Go through it, see if it will work. If it will or it won't, get back to the broker. You're going to find at least 3 brokers in each market, make a list of your 100 people, and send them an email. All right. This is the last slide I want to talk about just a little bit. So when I was getting started in this, I had bought several single family houses and been fairly successful. And I was transferring over now to start buying multifamily houses, apartment buildings. And I stepped in a couple of big landmines that cost me a lot of money. And if I hadn't had those single family houses, I'd have been out of the business. And that's where I want to talk to you about the 4 stages of learning and knowledge. Just real briefly, the first stage is you're unconsciously incompetent. You don't know what you don't know. And a lot of new investors sit in this quadrant for a while until they learn the business. And brokers know it and they see you coming. The second stage is consciously incompetent. Now you know enough to figure out that maybe you don't know about how to answer this. You don't know what this means. The third stage is consciously competent, where if you think about it and you go looking, you can come up with the answer. So you're competent, but you have to check on things. You have to think about things. And the last stage is unconsciously competent. You've just been doing it so long that you just know this stuff. Not everybody gets to the 4th stage ever. What you want to avoid is that unconsciously incompetent. And while you're in that stage, you need people to work with that have done this before and can provide some guidance and support. And I strongly believe that. After I stepped on these landmines, I went and took a couple of classes that I should have taken before because it cost me a whole lot of money. Right. So I am just kind of talking about that there. And then I'm going to let James kind of talk about this a little bit. We're not trying to sell this course at this point, but if you are interested, I ask you to go kind of check it out. These are free. They're meant to be free. We're not trying to upsell you into anything. James?
So that was awesome, Nicheole. It's so funny that I think a lot of people, when you started going over the NOI and the cap rates and stuff like that, I think it falls right into line with that last slide. When I first started doing this, I was like, wait. NOI is how much? And I'm sorry, what's a cap rate and stuff like that? And now, literally, we just had a meeting earlier today with a couple of investors, and I can do this in my head now. Basically come up with a price, cap rates, the
Yeah.
whole 9 yards. But it took a lot of practice. And I think what's critical if you want to get into this business, just doing that first part that she talked about, find 3 brokers, get 2 to 4 deals from each of those brokers, right? Now you're looking at 12 deals that you've looked at. Just with 12 deals, it'll start to pop for you. You won't be unconsciously confident yet, right? But you'll be on your way. It just takes practice. It's just numbers. And it just takes practice, just doing it over and over and over again. You'll be amazed at how quickly you can grow your knowledge in this business. But this is the class that I took basically, right? I mean, at the time it was almost 12 hours a day, 4 days, Thursday through Sunday with a huge manual, and you walked out kind of with like a glazed look in your eye. And I still always tell people this, I still have my original manual, but we actually created this online. This is Nicheole teaching for 60 hours. You're not going to get this done in a weekend. I know a lot of people sell courses. It's like, oh my God, this is great, 5 grand. And then, you do it Saturday and Sunday and you're done. This is going to take you a month to get through. The nice thing about it is that you're not going to do everything in here in a month, right? The first one is about goal setting and your markets and how to analyze deals, and it kind of grows little by little. But it's 60 hours, it's 36 modules. I can't tell you how many people have actually taken the course, and not to name names, but other people that have taken other courses and spent 20 and 30 grand have come to us and said, oh my gosh, I wish I'd found you guys sooner, because for 3 grand, I got even more than I did spending money somewhere else. So it's totally up to you. Again, I know it sounds like we're selling. We probably are selling, but the whole goal behind Teaching Tuesdays is provide information. And if you want to go to the next level and be successful and avoid some of those landmines, that Nicheole was talking about. I think this is an incredibly good value and investment. And we're not trying to take your money and run. We've got a 30-day guarantee. If after 30 days you decide, something, I'm going to go do something else, no big deal. No questions asked. We'll cut you a check. We'll give you your money back. But it really is an amazing, amazing program. And as you can tell just by listening to Nicheole, two things. One is she's incredibly genuine. She's not, rah rah, go do this no matter what kind of thing. It'll work for everybody. You do have to put work in. I hope you understand how genuine she is. And she's very, very good at teaching. I think had she not gone into this business, I think she'd be an awesome teacher. And it's reflected in the way that she presents her information, not just here, but in the course. So anyway, the QR code is up there if you're not on your phone, or you just go to passivecashflowforlife.com. In terms of goal setting, if you have an interest, we did come up with kind of a goal setting package with some videos to go along with it and stuff like that. It's free. Just shoot me an email at james@passivecashflowforlife.com. I'll be more than happy to send it to you and answer any questions that you might have. But as always, Nicheole, that was fantastic. Great information. Thanks so much. I know you don't have to take the time to do this. I know you're down in Florida, enjoying the sunshine, but I appreciate you so much and everything you do for us and for the community.
I thank you. So we still have a few minutes. So I'm probably 15 minutes. And so kind of let's open the things and ask any questions you want to about commercial real estate. Doesn't have to be what we talked about. So feel free to ask questions. And please do ask some questions. I'm not sure that I have live bodies here. The only person I've heard from is Lewis. Does anybody have questions?
I have a question.
Hey, Marissa.
Hi. When you were talking about the 10% vacancy and then the 45 to 50% expenses, um, can you can you roll that into one percentage? Can it be I just subtract 55 or 60% to get the NOI?
Yeah, you sure can. It's
Okay.
when we're doing this kind of this initial sniff test, kind of just sniffing the deal.
Hmm.
All you're trying to do is ballpark it
Okay.
to see if you're in a range. And so if once you get the NOI, if you're more than 20% off of a 7 cap rate, it's just not going to work. And you just move on. So we're not actually trying to put real numbers in terms of expenses on this at this point. We're just trying to get a general sense of the deal of,
Right.
kind of what are they collecting in rents and what are they asking?
Okay. Thank you.
You betcha. Anybody else?
quiet crowd.
I know. So let me ask, did everybody understand what I was saying? Is there anything I need to try and clarify more?
Very good and always very instructional, Nicheole.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, I agree with what Lewis just said.
All right. Well, if there are no questions, I don't see keeping people here for no good reason.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for attending. Hopefully you got some value. Again, if you want the goal sheet, feel free to shoot me an email and we'll be here in a couple of weeks for Teaching Tuesday. It's the second and fourth Tuesday of every month. And I believe next Tuesday that we put it together, we're going to talk about commercial insurance. A little bit dry, but incredibly important in making sure you're successful in multifamily, especially now with what's going on with insurance just across the country. So, again, thanks so much. Hope everyone has a fantastic night, and we'll talk to you soon.
Hey,
Bye,
James.
everybody.
Bye.
James,
Yes.
on that subject of insurance, will that be specifically about the property insurance, or will that
Yes.
also include
Nope.
liability insurance?
It'll be everything to do with commercial real estate insurance for multifamily.
All righty.
And we'll have a local broker talking about it. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
All right, Lewis. Have a good one. Talk to you
Bye,
soon.
everybody.
Bye.